feels like they're running an adult daycare, honestly. Some days it just feels like that. They're being nibbled to death by ducks, by a lot of little tasks. My personal opinion, we have the hardest job in any company. We just do. We have to please absolutely everybody, the product team, the finance team, our management, other sales managers, our salespeople. We have the toughest job. And the numbers show that it takes 23 minutes, 15 seconds on average to get back to the task that we left. There is another type of sales manager. This is a small percentage, but it's worth knowing that there are arsonists out there. The best sales leaders I know manage their day. It does not manage them. And there's a Sandler rule for this. The Sandler rule is you're either part of your own system, your own plan, or someone else's.
Welcome to Building Your Sales Engine. I'm your host, Mark McGraw. Hey folks, welcome back to Building Your Sales Engine. I am your host, Mark McGraw. Hey, today's episode, what we're going to do is I'm going to share with you a webinar that I hosted not too long ago on the habits of elite sales managers. And in this webinar, I walk through about a dozen different habits and ideas that are available to sales managers for areas where they can level up their game and always continue to be the best they can be. And so it's going to be a replay of a webinar that we hosted. As always, if there are things that we can be of help to you, please do reach out to us. Forward this episode on to other sales leaders that you know if you find value in it, and I hope you do. So with that, let's dive into the webinar.
So in the sake of time, I will start with a quick little expectation setting. As those of you who know Sandler, we're going to do a quick upfront contract. We're going to be about 50 minutes, give or take, together today, depending on how things go. Again, we are going to use webinar format. I would suggest to get the most out of our time together today, that what you think about and work on is, grab a bunch of notes. Again, you can have your cameras on or not, but grab a bunch of notes, jot some things down. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of really cool ideas coming through the chat box from people in terms of, what they see as elite sales leadership and sales management. And I would suggest to you that you follow the Pareto principle, which I love. The Pareto principle, of course, is the 80-20 rule. So as we're going through this today, at least how I learn and how I get the most out of workshops that I attend is that I'm taking a bunch of notes, I'm writing things down, and then I come back and say, all right, what are the 20% of those things at most that I'm going to go do? And I may pick one or two or three things at the most that I'm actually going to go do, but I would limit it to a handful of things, although there might be many ideas that creep up in our time together. Don't just have an idea, but go execute on it. And you can't execute on 50 things, but you can execute on one or two. And I think that there'll be some, good stuff that comes out of that for sure. While we're starting this up and getting into things, I'm going to share with you some resources that we have available to you at the end. And I'll show that just in a second. But let me ask this of everybody. Let's see the chat box light up with, what are some of the elite characteristics that you've seen about elite sales managers? In the chat box, what are some things that you see as being the elite characteristics? I mean, the people that are really the best. What are some of the things that they do and habits that they have? Let me just see some comments and notes over in the chat box about that as we get started. I'm going to put this up on the screen while people are putting notes over there. If you want to use your phone, jump over to the QR code. There is a page there, and it's got a bunch of questions about services and things that we provide. This is not going to be a commercial today. At the end, I'll take a minute and just, recap this. But if there are resources you want to learn more about with the Sandler world, then there's a place to go click on those boxes. Regardless, we will send you, if you hit the submit button, we will send you a link to the recording of this, as well as the tools and handouts that we have together today that you guys can get in one big bucket over there. So that's going to have right there. George Simpson, I love it. A staunch belief in the game plan. By the way, even having a game plan is super cool. Larry says, hey, clear, concise expectations. Huge. Okay. Mike Sweeney, focused. You are focused, sir. I've enjoyed getting to know you. And you are indeed focused. Andreas, CEO of Interest over there, and it's clear path and clear vision of where you want to go. Allison, that's cool. Empathy. I tell you, I'll throw this out to everybody. One of the things that I've seen, and I'm going to share with you a whole bunch of habits that I've seen, is if your intentions are to help grow and develop, and if your intentions are pure in terms of what you really want to see, that you want to help people and you want to help your team grow and develop, somehow that comes through your pores in some magical, mystical way, and it has a tremendous impact on people's success simply by just your intentions and your spirit, so to speak, of what you got going on. So intentions are super, super, super critical. And if anybody wants, maybe at the end, I'll shoot a video over to you. Wonderful, wonderful video about intention. I'm going to start today with sharing with you a story that I heard just a couple of days ago. And it's a story of an elite sales manager that a friend of mine shared this with me as we were comparing notes. And, I had asked her, I said, who's the best sales manager you've ever been around? And she told me the story of a guy. And I'll share with you what she put to me. And I would encourage you, as I go through this with you, think about some of the things that you hear that makes this person elite. And this person, this sales manager, had been at a number of different companies and had, with 70, 80% consistency, been able to elevate the team members on the team. Just had a great track record of growing people in the team. And I asked her, what does this guy do? And she explained to me, she said, early on when he takes a new role, he gets out in the field with people and he does ride-alongs. He's in Zoom meetings with people, and he takes a day at least to be in the field with the person on day one. And when he does that, he gives really no feedback through day one. Really very little that he brings up. I mean, he's observing, he's watching, he's listening. And day two, he has a conversation with them, and he starts the conversation by asking the rep, so how do you feel like you're doing? And he gets the rep to start to lay out their own self-assessment of what is going on in their territory and tactically in the sales calls. And he asks a bunch of questions about the opinion of the rep. And then, and only then, does this sales manager say, let me share with you what I'm seeing. And it was very interesting in hearing the story, because the sales manager then becomes extremely direct and says good things and says things that need to be improved. But what ends up happening in this conversation is that sales manager is creating a crevasse, a ravine between where the salesperson is today and where the sales manager believes they could be. And they're painting the story of a future vision of what the sales manager, this particular sales manager, thought the salesperson could achieve. And there's a gap inside of there, no matter really where they are. And, it was very direct, honest conversations about what's working and not working. And then the sales manager, I was told, has this conversation. And they go into saying, look, if you want to get to this higher state, I can help you get there. I've done it over and over and over, but it's not going to be easy. It's going to require a lot of hard work from you. I'm going to need you to change this. I'm going to need you to change this. And he says to the people, he said, if you're performing well and you're happy with that, tell me, you can stay. I don't need you to do one-on-ones and help you. I'll leave you alone, but you're going to have to meet your numbers and do your stuff, but I'll leave you alone. If you don't want to go to this other state, that's fine. But if you do, tell me, and we'll start to build some plans together. And a lot of people, of course, as you can imagine, say yes to that. And then he does one-on-ones with them over time, and he's coaching them and he's giving them insight into what they need to get better at. And one of the stories that I heard the person say was that when he goes through those, there's times when the sales rep might say, well, I didn't do my cookbook last week, or I didn't do this. And this dude is tough. He will end the call right there. And the story, and I've heard this from more than one person, but the story goes is that he has hung up on sales reps. I mean, in effect, when they said that they didn't do something, because in effect, well, here's what he said. He goes, like, look, my time is valuable, and I can put my time towards other people. If you're not going to do what you say you're going to do, we're going to end this right now, and we can come back to it later, but you're going to have to convince me you're going to go do it, but we're going to end the call right now, and I'm going to go on to some other things. And that's some tough love right there, but it is starting to set, some good accountability. And one of the things that he does is that he finds out when the person says, yeah, I want in on this plan, he asks them why. What's in it for you if you get better, if you sell more, if you do this? And everybody's heard the 5 whys, but he's basically using the 5 whys to get down to what is this person's personal motivation? What's their personal goals? What is it that they're after? And he's really digging into it. And also has the tough love and all of the elements to that. Now, in the chat box, give me some comments over there. I see some of them already flowing through. What are some things that you hear in that explanation of what certainly characteristics of an elite sales manager in terms of results? In the chat box, what are some of the things that you hear that person do? Let me see some comments. I thought that was, to me, when I heard that story, I just thought it was such a good explanation of what something is doing. Yeah, I mean, he's holding them accountable. Yep. Larry, I think it's an interesting thing is that when he asks them, he's giving them a choice in terms of if you want to level up, you can. I will help you. Okay. But if you don't want to do that and you want to stay where you are, that's fine too, as long as you're meeting your numbers. I mean, there was conditions to that. Okay. Yeah. And I see, I think it's ISIS asking them to feel. Look, there's Sandler principles that we have that you all know that when you sell, people buy emotionally, they justify their decisions intellectually. The Sandler rule, as well as there's no change until the pain of staying the same becomes greater than the pain of change. Those rules also apply to salespeople. And we can understand the personal impact a sales rep has in terms of if they get better and as they improve, what's their win, what's their benefit. That becomes really good fuel for motivating somebody to remind them of that, not like you're going to poke them in the eye with it, but to remind them of those goals that they set out for to be able to help them achieve those higher levels. Okay. And I'm seeing a whole bunch of good notes over in the chat box right over there. But that's an example of some of the characteristics. It actually made me think of a principle that we teach in our sales management programs as well. And the principle is called the 3 Ps. These are the 3 Ps of leadership. And you might jot these down because I think they're pretty darn good. And again, this is in other stuff that we do, but one of the P's of leadership is protection. And the protection bubble, if you will, of being a great sales leader has to do with the fact that this is not a game of gotcha. You create an environment where people can share and they can speak out openly, and they're not going to be overly judged or overly criticized. We've probably all at one time or another had that boss that would yell at somebody if they said something, if they admitted something that they didn't know an answer to, they would be chastised. I think creating an environment, elite sales managers and leaders create an environment of protection where people can tell the truth. Where if you're going to debrief an opportunity or something like that, it's not a situation where there's punishment. It's there to help the rep get better. Okay. Here's another big one, I think, and we're going to come back to this one a little bit later too. But I think a good sales leader is looking at what they're asking their reps to do and minimizing, or at least using the appropriate use of non-selling time of doing things. They're protecting the reps' time. They're protecting the reps sometimes from other things, needless reporting and things like that. Those are ideas around the concept of protection. The second level, the second P, is permission. Permission to say, I don't know. Permission to challenge things. Permission to change strategies. Here's a big one right here. Permission to disqualify an opportunity. To say, hey, boss, here's the situation with the ABC account. We got this thing going on. We've got a competitor in there. There's 3 people bidding on this thing. It looks like it's all about price. We are not in a good position to win this deal. I'm going to respectfully decline to play, and I'm going to put my energies over into these other areas. And that we give our reps permission to be able to go do that, to disqualify an opportunity. Here's another one. I'm just giving you some thoughts, okay? To push back nurturingly to prospects, to be assertive. Don't just be, let's teach our sales reps not to be the golden retriever salespeople where all they're doing is just fetching things for the salesperson or for the customer. Okay? It's okay to push back. It's okay to have a spine. Permission to do that. The last area of the P's, if you think about it, is potency. Potency is when your rep looks at you or at a sales leader, do they believe that that sales leader can lead them to a better place? In the story, the true story that I shared with you a few minutes ago, I believed that there was a lot of potency that particular sales manager had because he had been there, done that before, and been able to help other people go excel and level their game up. And as a result of that, you're more willing as a salesperson to follow that particular manager into battle. And those 3 Ps, to me, are a really important ingredient to elite sales leadership. And I wanted to put that out to everybody right up front to have you think about, are there areas that you want to work on in terms of your own development, in terms of protection, potency, and permission? Okay? Because it really does, all of these things start to develop the sales culture of your organization. Okay? That's all of that stuff lines up right over there. Okay, now I'm going to pop into a series of habits that I have found to be super beneficial to sales leaders. Some of you are likely doing a lot of these things, I know, but I'm going to put them in front of you and decide what you might want to take away from today that's going to help you in terms of developing your own skills and your own team. Here's one of the biggest, and that is the best sales leaders I know manage their day. It does not manage them. And there's a Sandler rule for this. The Sandler rule is you're either part of your own system, your own plan, or someone else's. And one of the biggest things that I see day in and day out as I'm coaching sales managers is that they're basically, it feels like they're running an adult daycare, honestly. Some days it just feels like that. They're being nibbled to death by ducks by a lot of little tasks. Okay? I'm going to ask the room this in the chat box, if you would. How many times an hour do you feel like you get interrupted or that you have some inbound something coming into your life? I see some smiling faces and shaking heads, Bill. How many times an hour do you think you get interrupted with just the chaos that goes on. And by the way, side note, as you guys are chatting stuff in over there, I want to see some of the chats. Okay. Side note, my personal opinion, we have the hardest job in any company. We just do. We have to please absolutely everybody, the product team, the finance team, our management, other sales managers, our salespeople. We have the toughest job. Okay. I'm seeing like a lot. Some statistics. Now, and this is your mileage will vary. Okay. But here's some statistics. The stats say, this is not of sales managers, but this is of managers in general, that in general, people are interrupted every 6 minutes during a workday. Somebody calls and says, George, got a minute? And then we're off and running. Okay. And the numbers show that it takes 23 minutes, 15 seconds on average to get back to the task that we left when we started this thing. Okay. And that's a big drain on our days. If you looked at, and just kind of ran the math on this, if you looked at a 60-minute hour, like there's a different type of 60-minute hour, you're going to be interrupted about every 10 minutes and on average, and it may take you 20 minutes to get back to what you were working on. Okay. And the elite that I'm aware of and that I know use systems to help them manage their time and their day. One of my favorites, and I am just such, this has changed my life, is the Pomodoro technique. If anybody's using the Pomodoro technique, throw it over into the chat box and say, amen or something that you like over there. That would be fantastic. The Pomodoro technique will save yourself as a sales manager. And what this concept is that there's going to be some blocks throughout the course of your day, maybe only 2 or 3 of these things, where you're going to go into what I call pure focus mode. And focus mode is when you as a sales manager say, I'm going to do just this one task for the next 20, 25 minutes. And you set a timer. I got one of these guys right here. I use this thing all the time. You can go to timetimer.com or go get it on Amazon. It's great. But what this thing does is that you say that for this block of time, I am doing nothing else other than the task that I'm working on. Okay. So if you're working on a forecast, you're not going to be interrupted by any inbound calls. If you're working with doing a one-on-one with one of your people, you're not going to do anything else. But for that block of time, you are totally focused and you're putting all of your energy into that particular activity such that you're not being distracted by other things. When you do that, 3 big things come out of it. Okay. Number 1, you actually increase your productivity by 30%. Some of you have been in workshops where I've done this study with you and you've seen it. It's a 30% improvement in your efficiency the minute you focus on one thing. Number 2, the quality of the work that you do will be greater. And here's the best thing. The third thing you get out of it when you really, as an elite manager, is you have some times where you're dedicated on one thing. When you're done with that block of time, you will have more energy than if you get interrupted every 6 minutes and you're off doing 10 things. You will feel burned out in that environment, but you will feel fulfilled when you actually do and stay focused on something. Okay? And I'll throw this out to everybody super quick. When I put this webinar together, I worked with one of my team members, Rachel Chang, and we sat here and we set a timer for 45 minutes and we basically knocked out this webinar, which would have taken me 3 or 4 hours had I not had dedicated time. And we had 0 interruptions and we put everything that we needed together in 45 minutes. But we did not have one interruption during that time that we took. Okay? It was 100% focused on that one activity. And, everybody's heard time blocking and all of these things. This is just an elite skill that if you are not 10 out of 10 at making sure that you're blocking time out, this is just an absolute habit of the elite when it comes to sales management. And one of the things, I feel like a preacher here at the moment, but one of the things that I see that I think we could do some self-assessment around is that if you're telling your sales team to go time block and block time for prospecting and things like that, and we're not doing it, we're not being what we call in Sandler, be a product of the product. Okay? You got to be a product of the product in terms of what you got going on so that you are demonstrating to your team what they should be doing. And you could look at their calendars and say they should have some prospecting time. And by the way, the whole Pomodoro thing is awesome for prospecting. And when you do the things you say you're going to do, you feel better. Okay? And so what ends up happening when you go through this is that you're teaching your sales team to ultimately become self-sufficient. Okay? Because here's what happened to me. The other day, I'm running a workshop with some managers. And one of the managers says, well, what if one of my reps calls me and they want to try to get a hold of me when I'm in one of my blocked times? Okay? Some of you might have been on this call, even now that I'm thinking about it. But here's what went through my head. It's like, what happens ultimately is that if we allow our reps to have 100% access to us, we begin to train them that we then are the answer to all of their problems, and that they then stop thinking for themselves and they call us the sales manager before they've taken the time to think through a problem. Just in the chat box, is this resonating with anybody? If I just got some typed or nonverbal feedback on that from everybody. I mean, if you've seen that, you know it. And there's a term for this, okay? The term is called learned helplessness. It's teaching our people that they can come to you as a first immediate knee-jerk reaction. And elite sales managers are not succumbing to that, okay? And so maybe a few of you are on this call are thinking about that very thing and what you can do on that front to avoid. And I don't know why it is, but that phrase, it just pierces my heart. And there's something about that it's like, okay, I can't allow myself to go do that because I'm teaching my people not to think for themselves. Okay? And that phrase just kind of hurts my soul in a certain way. I stumbled into, and I'm going to put this up big on the full screen for you so you can actually just not only read it, but screenshot it. I saw this quote from a book that I did not read, but I saw this quote, and I don't plan on reading it. The book's called, by the way, Toxic Charity, How Churches and Charities Hurt Those That They Help. I don't know what that book's about, but I saw this quote, and it really, really hit me. So the quote is, if you give something to somebody once, they appreciate it. If you give them the same thing to that person again, they'll anticipate you're going to do it a third time. If you give it a third time, they're going to have the expectation you'll do it a fourth. If you do it a fourth, they're going to feel entitled to it. And by the fifth time, they're dependent on you for it. Screenshots available now. Okay? I mean, again, to me, that really, really resonated with me. Here's the short summary of it, is that when we over-enable our people, they go from appreciating it to anticipating it to expecting it to be entitled for it and ultimately becoming dependent upon it, such that we are not allowing our people to become self-sufficient in what they're doing. Okay? And I'll pause there to see if there's any comments in the chat box about this particular skill of actually forcing our team members to be able to think for themselves for a little bit. I'll just see if there's anything in the chat box. Anybody has any comments on this? Okay, I'll keep rolling with other stuff. Oh, nice. Thank you. Excellent. Okay. That is certainly one. If on the list of habits that I've seen is that they are ensuring that their people have the tools and resources necessary to act on their own, and they're not over-enabling their people, but certainly there to support them and help them. Okay? Here's another one of the elite habits that as I surveyed myself and clients, and I'm looking for what I've seen, there is a difference in coaching that I see between the elite and the good. Okay? And it has to do with a concept that we in Sandler called strategic coaching versus tactical coaching. Okay? And you might even, we put reporting in here too, if we want, as a third category. But here's the difference. As an elite sales leader, I think we have to understand that there's a difference between these two types of coaching, and ultimately make sure that we have a decent balance of these two types of coaching as we're developing and working with people. Strategic coaching, if you think about it, is really about working with somebody on their personal development, maybe building their own confidence and self-esteem. Maybe it's things like evaluating a territory and helping them look at expanding accounts. It's thinking about how do we get better at overall, what skills do they need to get better? Like, let's say they need to get better at negotiating. It's being able to help identify what are the things that someone needs to get better at, and how do they go develop. Here's a big one, by the way, right here, and that is, how are our sellers working with their internal team? Are they playing nice with others, or is it, just constant chaos? But strategic is looking down at the chessboard with a rep and determining what they need to get better at a whole. Even the opening story, there was some samples of that strategic view. Tactical coaching is deal reviews. It's looking at a pipeline, not the pipeline so much as the deals in the pipelines. It's pre-call planning can be tactical coaching. It's debriefing. So tactical coaching is really good. I mean, it's not like one is always better than the other. But one thing that I do see is that a lot of people tend to drop down over here to the tactical side of it, as opposed to staying and having some percentage of the conversations be strategic. Okay? And if I hear this every single week. I may ask a sales manager, so tell me about the one-on-ones that you run with your team. And the sales manager will say, I don't really have one-on-ones, but I talk to my team all the time. Okay? I hear that a lot. I can almost assure you that if we recorded those particular calls, almost 100% of the conversation is going to be tactical. It's going to be getting a deal done or getting a deal closed, but without some strategic time on the calendar where we're doing some better stuff and thinking higher level, we really don't get to this strategic side of things. It stays mostly tactical. So that's an area where I see a difference between sales reps, sales managers, as it were. And I have a tool I'm going to share with you as well. The third area that I had in there, which I will fully admit, there was a time in my sales management life when I was in corporate America where I felt like I was the full-time reporter. The CEO would ask me, hey, what's going on with the such and such account? And I needed to know what the status was on every frickin' deal that we had across 75 reps. And it was a lot. And I felt like what I was is that I was less so doing strategic and less so doing tactical. And I was more like, just following up with everybody to see where the deal was. And I saw this the other day on LinkedIn, and it absolutely made me laugh. And it hit home for me a little bit because there was a time in my life where I felt like, and I look back on it, and I was kind of that. Okay. And if anybody wants to know, there's a funny LinkedIn channel that's got all kinds of sales humor. You can go look it up on LinkedIn, and that's where I stumbled into that little gem right there. One of the tools that can help us work our way through what are the things that we need to do is a tool that we use, and this is part of our program, but I'm going to share it with everybody here. And this is called a gap assessment. And Nadia, if you don't mind, can you drop that over? Oh, you did already. Awesome. Read my mind. A gap assessment is coming up with the major capabilities and competencies that a sales rep needs to have that are both strategic and tactical. And it allows the rep to be able to self-score themselves, and the manager scores themselves. And then you decide which of these items need attention and what's the action plan over here to go make it happen. Really good tool. Okay. So, for example, let's say the sales rep for qualifying opportunities gives themselves, they think that they're an 8. The manager thinks they're a 2. Okay. That shows up as a discrepancy. And then you build a plan over here to say, let's talk about that and let's figure out what we can do and when we can do it by. Okay. Not every one of the items that you put onto a behavioral gap analysis do you need to go address. But the idea behind it is to identify what are the issues in terms of the lack of calibration that exists between a manager and between a sales rep. And it stimulates and forces good conversation. Okay. And I would, if it were me, and I were you, one of the things I might do is I might take that behavioral gap analysis that we put over in the chat box and put it over into AI, and then have it reconstruct what are the categories that are necessary for your business. Because these are general ones, but they may not fully represent your particular business. So you can go, turn these around. By the way, the last one down here is execution of the Sandler process. But you can customize and make your own based upon this concept, but it really does stimulate good conversation with people. And I've been super happy with it as a tool. Okay, next topic I have up here. And if anybody has questions or thoughts, throw them over in the chat box. I'll keep them going, but I'm going to kind of blow and go, as we got going on. Another area where I see people who are really leveling skills up, and that is making sure that they have some strategic time blocked on their calendar. We run a workshop called Sales Managers Fast Track. Give you details of it at the end if you like. We got a new series starting up, or a new cohort starting up. So if anybody's interested in that, that's one of the items on the checkbox for the initial form that we talked about. You can click that if you want to know more about that. But one of the things that happens inside of there is that we go do some analysis of time management. And consistently, one of the things that I hear from people is that they wish that they would, and they start to actually put more strategic blocked time on their calendar. So every week they have some amount of time where they're going to get out of the office, whether it's home office or whether it's their office, they're going to go literally get out of the box. And they're going to go somewhere with a journal and a notebook, and they're not going to be interrupted for 90 minutes. And they're going to analyze their reps, their territories that they're responsible for, and their responsibilities, and think strategically about what's taking place. Okay? And they look down at the chessboard for 90 minutes. And I'll go full screen with this if you want to take a screenshot of it. They're thinking about, are they getting as much from their reps as they could? Are there areas where if they split a territory, okay, if they got Dallas as a part of their region that they're responsible for, do we have enough business there for 2 reps in Dallas? Because the best sales managers are going to their boss saying, here's what we could do to extract more revenue from our plot of land, as opposed to the other way around, where the manager is going to the CEO is going to the sales manager saying, hey, I think we can get more out of the Dallas territory. They're being proactive with how do they grow their particular region, and they're thinking these things through. Okay, they're looking at revenue per rep as an example. That's a really good number, by the way, to have in your head and to have as a baseline number. They're figuring out of their team who is in need of help, who needs developing, who needs to be put on a plan. By the way, side note, and again, I know I'm running and gunning here with you, but side note, please do yourself a favor. This is some career advice to everybody I give from time to time. If your boss, as a sales manager, if your boss is having to come to you to tell you that you should put one of your team members on a plan, you are behind the curve. And I say that with love, okay? We need to be going to our management and saying, hey, boss, I want to bring this to your attention. I got a problem over here. I'm working to fix it. Wanted to make sure you're aware of it, okay? But when we as a sales manager have to react to our bosses coming to us saying, hey, you got a problem over here, we are behind the curve, okay? I'm just throwing that out to everybody because I want us, thinking about these things. And this strategic time gives us an opportunity to do that. Otherwise, we're being nibbled to death by ducks every day, and we're not going to get done what we think, what we're really capable of. Okay, here's a tool as well that I would encourage you to go think about. And I think, man, I wish I would have done this at a 5-year period of my career early on, for sure. But here's what you think about. If you strategically take some time to figure out what's the P&L on a salesperson, what I mean by that is if you thought about a salesperson, let's go back to that person in Dallas. What does it take for them to make a profit for the business? And to go run like a little mini P&L as if you were managing a business and that business was a person, that person generates sales and there's a cost of goods sold. So if you had, for example, if you took a territory to come up with what the P&L is of a sales rep, and you said strategically, let's say that they sell $1 million worth of stuff, and we got a cost of goods sold of 35%, that's $350,000. Let's say we pay 10% commission, that's $100,000. That means there's a gross margin to that rep of $550K. Okay, pretty good. Until we get down to the expense line. There's a salary of $150, there's benefits. By the way, if you do not know what the overhead burden rate is of your team members, I might suggest you go find that out. Go talk to your financial community, go find out what the overhead rate is for a sales rep, because it's probably higher than you think it is, in terms of what goes on. So the cost of an employee is not the $150,000 salary, it's also the benefits and everything that goes into it. Then you got the selling costs, okay? As a business owner myself, I cannot tell you how much it costs. I can tell you, but I won't tell you how much it costs every single month of subscription services that we pay for to have everybody have all the information that we need. It's just incredible, and it's just insane, and it's crazy. But at the same time, you kind of want and need those things. They add up. So what you want to try to figure out here strategically then is what's the overall margin that a salesperson would produce, and what does it take from a sales point of view to reach break even? Because you might have regions or you might have accounts where you could have 2 or 3 people, and if you have more people paying attention, you could generate more revenue. And now you're proactively going to your management saying, hey, I think there's an opportunity for expansion over here, and that we could add another person, or that we could do more. And here's the math of how I came up with it. Okay? And I'm just going to ask, does that make sense to everybody? And I'll just look for comments on the chat box. I love it. Dennis made me laugh. And by the way, they probably are getting a deal for you. Would not be surprised. Okay. All right. Couple other quick things that I want to make sure we get over here. And this one is a habit of being process focused. Process focus really helps us figure out and prevent issues. And when I think about this, I think of the 3 types of sales managers that I see. One of them is what I refer to as the firefighter. The firefighter sales manager, phone rings, sales manager picks up the phone, it's an emergency, the lights go on, and we run out to go put out the fire because that's what we do all day. We are firefighters. We put out problems, okay? That's one type of person. There is another type of sales manager. This is a small percentage, but it's worth knowing that there are arsonists out there. And what an arsonist sales manager is they love putting out fires so much that they absolutely will not train their people how to close business. They will not train their people how to present. Therefore, the manager always needs to show up, and they actually are maybe even likely unconsciously not putting the systems in place necessary to be successful because they like they like the importance of being needed. Okay? And that's what I refer to as an arsonist mentality. Okay? The last one, and here's where I would really encourage you to drive towards, and that is what I refer to as the fire marshal. A fire marshal has rules that need to be applied to. There's standards. In our building, about every 120 days, we get a guy that comes in and he goes over to the side of our building and he looks at the 2 fire extinguishers that we have and makes sure that they're not out of date. Okay? Because if a spark shows up in our building, we have the ability to take care of it before it becomes a problem. Self-sufficiency. Okay, you see it? It's right there. So good sales managers are really good fire marshals. They have processes and policies and rules that people and standards that need to be held to such that they prevent issues from occurring. Okay, and that's a mindset that I think just is pervasive in such a good way of the best sales leaders. I have a tool for you that I'm going to make available to everybody. It's going to be over in the resource guide when we're done. It's a self-assessment that goes through about 30 different areas where you can self-assess your sales management process and determine how you feel about these particular areas and what areas might need more attention to help elevate your game. Okay? And just a resource I wanted to put in front of you. A lot of times a sales manager then will say, I don't have time for that, or how am I going to do that? I would argue you don't have time to not do it. You know, there's an expression that if you've ever gone through meditation or TM, that, you know, they have a little line that they use, and that is that when people say that I don't have 20 minutes to meditate, then you need to take 40. Okay? And that's about how this is. If you don't have time because you're too busy to take a little bit of time to put some fire marshal principles in place, you probably need to take more time because you're fighting fires that don't need to be fought. Unless you're an arsonist, that's another story. Okay? And so the best tool that I could recommend to anybody is what I call a Kaizen meeting or a CANI meeting on your calendar. CANI. I have not done a lot of things well in my career. I've done some good things. This is one thing. We have been doing this meeting for 9 years, 80 to 85% consistency for a meeting that we hold from 2 to 3:30 on Fridays. It is an optional meeting. We call it the CANI, Constant and Never-Ending Improvement Meeting. And what we do in that 90-minute period of time is at the beginning of the week, we'll identify a topic that we want to try to improve in our business. And then we will take 90 minutes not to make to-do lists, but to do the work. Okay, let me give you an example. If you're getting a lot of questions about a particular product, you might take that 90 minutes to go shoot videos on how do you sell and promote and talk about this particular product that then you send out to your team to give them a resource that they come to that resource rather than you, and they have it at their fingertips when they need it. and it doesn't require time out of your day. And a lot of times people can watch a video 2 or 3 times, but if we tell them once and it's lost to the ether. Okay? So just as an example, if your onboarding system is weak, you can take some 90-minute chunks to make your onboarding system better. Okay? If your hiring process needs help, by the way, we have a resource to help you with that. We are trained in helping people develop a hiring process. So if that's something that you need, there's a box for it over there on the thing. Just reach out to us and we're happy to help you with it. But the idea behind this is that it's a 90-minute meeting where you do the work as much as possible. Don't just plan the work. Okay? In our office, we make it 100% optional, which is weird because 80% of our people show up for it, even though it's optional. Okay? And I'll look for questions if anybody has questions about this process. But you might make a checklist. You might improve your onboarding process. You might improve your new client onboarding process, or get rid of something, eliminate something. Okay, these are the kinds of things that you can go do that are going to help you tremendously in terms of building systems. One thing that I have found that helps tremendously these days, if you're not doing this, highly recommend it, and that is record freaking everything that takes place. All your internal meetings. If you're doing onboarding for someone, just as an example, and if you're doing onboarding, you got 1 or 2 or 10 people there, record that onboarding series of sessions, take the transcript, and either put it into AI as a resource or get it organized with the words that people are saying and doing, such that you can use tools like AI these days to be able to organize the things that we say out loud. The amount of information that is out there right now that can be accessed through recordings is absolutely insane. And you can record sales calls and get coaching feedback. AI tools help you with that. We got one there too as well. You can do a ton of stuff when you have things recorded that will save you time to be able to help you manage your team more efficiently, more effectively. Okay. Zoom's got good tools, although I don't like their AI tool for that. Fathom is the best meeting recording tool that I've run into. I think it's fantastic. You can record meetings using one of these devices. This is called a Plaud, Plaud, and it will record an in-person meeting and does an exceptional job of picking up on the audio such that you've got the transcript at that point, and then you can provide coaching and feedback or turning it into something that's more of a process. Okay? And I'm watching the clock with this. Is this anybody have questions about this, or does this make sense? And if you just throw it in the chat box and I'll cover it. But I think we're letting a lot of knowledge slip through the cracks by not recording, capturing, and putting it, especially AI is a super helpful tool these days to organize things. Case in point, I created Virtual Mark. I don't know why that image aged me. I'm not that old, but it did. We have Virtual Mark, and I have 30 hours worth of me onboarding different team members that are over into an AI project that anytime somebody wants to ask a question about, like, how do you enter a new deal into the CRM, they can chat it with Virtual Mark and they actually get a more concise answer than they would for me, and they can get it 24 hours a day. That's just an example of what happens when you start to capture the written word and capture transcripts. Okay? By the way, we have a whole bunch of other resources and tools. There's a whole podcast that I did on AI tools in sales, and it's over here at buildingyoursalesengine.com. So if you want to type that in and go save or like or whatever you need to, we're on YouTube and all the other platforms, Apple Podcasts and all the above. And that episode is episode 61. Okay? And by the way, I didn't think about this till just now. our 61 episodes, a year and a half of doing the podcast, came out of a CANI meeting. Just right there, just popped in my head. True story. Okay. Last thing I'm going to hit you with together today in the time that we have is an elite activity that I think one of our clients brought this up recently, and I'm like, that is genius. And she said it's okay to share this. But one of the things that we look at is, where are our reps spending their time? We want our reps to sell more and to do more. And the fact of the matter is that there's only so many hours in the day. Okay. And Salesforce did a study. They've done this actually every year for several years. The 2024 version of this study looked at salespeople, and it looked at how much of their day they're spending selling and how much of their day they're spending not selling. And you can see the numbers right there. That is alarming, to say the least, to me. Okay, and this is things like meetings with customers and connecting to virtual meetings and prospecting time. But all this other 72% of the time is actually non-selling activities. So one of my clients went through this process, and I thought this was fantastic. What they did, now this is not their list, okay? But what they did is they took an inventory of all of the activities that they have that their reps are doing. And they listed them all out, okay? All the stuff that they have going on. And then the next thing that they did is they categorized that list into a hierarchy of value. So the things at the top of this list are more valuable. Not anybody can run a good sales call with a customer, but that's at the top of the list. But administrative tasks down here, that fell down at the bottom of the list. So the process is, one, take an inventory of what your reps are doing. Number two, hierarchy the value and stack rank them in terms of what brings the most value to the company and what brings the least value to the company. And then put a dollar sign or some symbol on it over here where you start to get an idea of what are the absolutely highest value activities that reps need to be doing. And then maybe run some CANI meetings. How do you get rid of these things here or minimize them as they go through their day and week and month? One of our clients, and some of you actually know this person. He was on a podcast with me, David Karp, if you know the name. One of the things that David did is he took all of the meetings that they had and they laid them out on a calendar. And what they started to realize is that some of these meetings didn't need to happen every week. They needed to happen every other week. And some of them needed to go away at all. And some of them needed to be an email, not a meeting. And what ends up happening is that when you inventory and evaluate where your reps are spending the time, you can begin to start to either automate or eliminate some of these activities down here. Not Sandler training, that's got to stay. Okay, that's why I put non-Sandler training right there. Okay, wink and a nod to everybody on that. Okay, but those types of things might have a lower value, and what can we get rid of so that we increase this number right here and get our reps with more time in the field so that that number can go up. Okay. And so that's a process. I think that is just an absolute great system to be thinking of to go build out our reps' ability to have more time to get their job done. Okay. Now, let me just wrap up with everybody. I'm just looking at the clock. We're right up against the time right now. As you can tell, there's a lot here. What I would ask you to do is go look over your notes and then go write down. In fact, you could throw it in the chat box. What's one thing, back on the Pareto principle, what's one thing that would help you tremendously sell more, get your team to be more elite? Everybody on this call is already elite. But to be even more elite, what's an idea or a thought that maybe our time together spurred for you that might help you level up the game? And just throw it over into the chat box as we wrap up. Okay? Put that over into the chat box. So everybody knows, the resource guide that we sent over to you guys, I'll put it up on the screen right there for you. We would ask, take a moment. There's a bunch of check boxes there that include things like our virtual sales management services, where we actually manage a team of salespeople on your behalf. If we have a president of a company who has a sales team and they are also the sales manager, we have a group of people that specialize in that, where they are fractional sales managers. It's cool. Things like our assessment services, things like our sales training, things like developing the client success team so that they're selling more. So if you have an interest in any of those things, just check the box. And then when you hit the submit button over at the bottom, we will send you the recording, and we'll also send over to you the resource guides that has all the notes from together today. Okay, so we appreciate your time with that. By the way, if there's people that you think that ought to know about what we do, please forward a note over to us. We are always grateful for that as well, and appreciate you all a ton. I promised I would keep it to 1 hour. I hope I gave you a ton of value together today. That was the purpose. That was the intent. And I'll hang out here on the line if anybody needs anything. But I'll look over the notes of the wins that you guys got out of this activity inventory. That's awesome. Appreciate that. And we will wrap up with this. And again, I'll hang out here if anybody wants to just chat. I'd love to catch up with you. Thanks, everybody.